he got a healthy fine, damn near lost his license. I took it down to Port Aransas. Henry was a commercial fisherman, and then he got a chance to be the airport operator at Port Aransas, and he jumped all over that. And he was good at it. He did great. And one day he was sitting in the living room, he was watching TV, and he got up to go get another glass of tea, and Pat, his wife, and I are still real good friends. She said he took about 4 or 5 steps and dropped and hit the floor, and the autopsy revealed he had a brain aneurysm. And Pat said Henry was dead before he was flattened out on the floor. Yeah. He was a great fisherman. He taught me how to fish out in the Gulf. When I knew I was going to have 2 or 3 weeks before I wouldn't fly, I'd go down there and go out with him in one of his boats. We'd go 300-400 miles out in the Gulf, and he was doing like that long line fishing shit like they did on the Perfect Storm or something like that. And to me it was fun as hell, and we just sacked up the fish. The money, I went with him one time, we were gone 3 weeks, and we had caught I don't know how many tons of fish, and all we did was we gutted them and we put them in this humongous freezer. And Henry would get on the radio when we would be coming back, and he would call this fish company in Alabama, and they would meet us at his house in Ingleside, and they would each fish got brought different prices, and they would weigh each fish and write down the weight and what kind of fish it was, whether it's a kingfish, an amberjack, a tuna, whatever. And then he was paid by the weight of the fish and the name of the type of fish it was. But that, I remember, went out one time and we came back, and the guy that was driving the refrigerated truck picking up the fish wrote him a check for almost $400,000 in a 3-week. Huh?
For one load of fish?
Yeah, for a 3-week period.
Yes.
And I went, damn. I said, how much is that net, Henry? And he said, oh, B, around 250, 230 to 200, 230, 250,000. And I went, damn. And his wife, Pat, owned the largest beauty salon in Corpus Christi. Had like 30 or 35 chairs in there. And they were all leased out to people. Of course, they had to pay her, you know, to use the chairs and everything. But I don't have any idea on that. And his house that he built in Ingleside, what cracked me up, when Hurricane Carla came through, I believe in '62, all the houses, he lived on the water, and all the houses were demolished except his. And when he was building his house, it was an A-frame. His legs to hold the house up was railroad track embedded in concrete, 25 feet up. And he only had one floor on the house, but it was 25 feet off the ground. And had a lift in the garage on the ground floor that would pick the vehicle up 20 feet. And the bottom floor had a pool table and some other stuff down there, but it wasn't any living spaces down there. And they had marks on the wall for all the hurricanes and how high the water went, because he never left his house. And Hurricane Carla showed up and destroyed everything. The water was a little over 5 foot deep in his house.
Wow.
But he and Pat were fine because they were upstairs. But when he died, Pat said I was not in my right mind. I told her, I said, I understand, because I had always told him if you ever wanted to sell that house, I want it. And Pat sold it to somebody else. And then when I found out about it, I reminded her, I said, you were supposed to keep that and let me buy it. And she said, it was about a week after Henry died, and I totally forgot all about it. I was still messed up. And I said, oh, that's all right, no worries.
Yeah, grief does that.
You could go out in his backyard and fish off his, not really a dock, but his breakwater thing. The water was normally about 3 foot below his yard. And if you wanted to have fish for dinner, you could go out there at 4:30 and catch trout or redfish and have dinner at 6 o'clock, no problem. Or flounder. And behind his house was the guy next door. All I remember, his name is Fred, and they had a channel cut that was about 5 foot deep, 25 foot across, and it went by the Bahia Marina and everything else out there in about I guess maybe a 300-acre plot of water out there. Was called the Flats, and it was anywhere from ankle deep to a little over knee deep, and that was prime fishing for a flounder or gigging, either one. I'd never been gigging before. Henry took me gigging one night, and one of the first things I put a gig in was a small stingray. It looked like a flounder laying, you know, in the sand. Henry laughed. He said, just yank your gig out real quick. And I ended up doing that. He said, that stingray, he'll be all right. He'll go over there and be pouting and pissing, but he'll be okay. But we got a whole bunch of flounder.
Don't think you can get dinner any fresher.
Yeah. One time I went with him pole fishing. A restaurant in Corpus called him and said they needed some amberjack. And he said, okay. And we went out to this reef that's 42 miles out from the jetties at Port A and tied onto a rig. And Henry threw a line over. I did my Roy Rogers thing and lassoed a post on the rig for the boat. Henry let a line down with a ribbon fish on it. He had a damn, not a barracuda, amberjack, and I thought he was hung up, and I was laughing till him said, "Oh, that thing is just hung. The pole's just bent over." And he said, "No, I got an amberjack on." And he said, "Here." And I was leaning over when he gave me the pole. That damn thing took off. It pulled me in the water. And
you didn't let go of the pole?
No, I had the pole. And he said, Henry was hollering at me. He said, "Flip it in neutral so he doesn't pull you under." And I was scared to death. There's fish all around us and everything else. And I just see, you know, I'm fixed to get bit in the ass by something.
Something with big teeth.
Yeah, and I kept hollering. Henry said, "Get me the hell out." I couldn't get up. The boat was too tall in water. And Henry's laughing. He said, "I'll get you out in a minute." And it seemed like hours, but it really wasn't. But he got that fish in the boat before he got my ass in the boat. But I swam around at the back of the boat, and I got on top of the trim tabs back there.
Yeah.
And he got all over me about doing that. Said I'd mess up the cylinders on the tab, and I said, "I don't care." I said, "I can feel stuff swimming around my feet." And he said, "Those are fish." And I said, "Yeah, well, they all got teeth." And but he got me back in there. I never did live that down. But we caught a whole bunch of amberjack. I think the smallest one we had was around 80 pounds. And the biggest one was around 130. And we came back, and he kept one of them, and he sold all the others to that restaurant over there in Corpus. And he showed me how to cut them, but we laid them out, no bones, and just had big old amberjack steaks. But damn, they were good. And I've had my boat out there catching them. We followed a head boat out one time because we wasn't sure where we were going to go. And that dude, Ron, had his boat. He had a 24-foot open bow, and Ron had a radio. And there's a mine up there. There's a tailings. You want to stop and go in it, or see if we can?
Make it. You feel like climbing?
If you guys want, otherwise no.
Yeah, we'll just go. I don't know if it's open or not. But we followed that head boat out, party boat, with all the fishermen. The captain over there got mad as hell and was chewing on Ron's ass over the radio from A to Z. And Ron finally got pissed off and told him, he said, "I don't see any signs out here that says that this is your fishing hole, so why don't you just shut the fuck up?" And after that, we never heard another word. But what we were catching was little 3-foot, 3.5-foot long black-tip sharks. And I wasn't sure if those things would be good to eat or not, but they were. We caught some that were bigger. They were not that good, but the small ones were really good. The guy told me, we gave him some of them, and he said, the day before you're going to cook these, he said, soak your fillets in buttermilk, and it'll be a whole lot better. And evidently old Fart was right, because they were really good. Yeah.